So let me talk to you about an example, Angie, of when you might want to sell in an upswing. So as we lay out our buckets of money strategy in the GenWealth Ready to Retire process, when we look at that later term bucket where we need to have some more growth oriented returns, sometimes those are going to be negative and we want to leave them alone and give them time to recover. Sometimes they're going to be inordinately positive. They're going to be above what we had planned. Well, if that happens, we don't necessarily want to leave that money on the table for it to turn around and go the other direction, because over time, John, we've often talked about the visual of if a person is walking up a staircase and they have in their hand a yo-yo, that yo-yo is going up and down, and over time, even the low points are higher than what the high points used to be as you get to the top of the staircase, but it's volatile. It's going to move, and your growth-oriented investments are going to do the same thing. So when we have a time where we get an extraordinary high, then we may want to take some of those gains off the table. When we put together a retirement income plan for somebody, it looks very stagnant on paper. It looks like this is exactly how it's going to work in any given year, but real life is much more dynamic than that. And so we will take those gains and maybe even just go ahead and use those for income in the next year and let their cash sit in place for another year, and then we've got more time for all of the buckets.
Janet, I like to call it a plant, grow, harvest type of philosophy. So we're going to plant that growth money in a growth investment, and we're going to let it grow and do its thing. But when it is ripe, then we're going to harvest it. Now, we're not going to cut down the tree. We're just going to harvest the fruit from that tree. So we're going to plant it, let it grow, and when it bears fruit, then we're going to harvest, meaning that we're going to scrape off those excess gains and put them in a more conservative bucket for someone who is in retirement so they can actually realize those gains. If you let that ride during retirement, it might go down and you might not have time to get it back. So we want to capture some of those gains and put them into a more conservative bucket that is ready to be used for your income, for your enjoyment in retirement. So I think that really does give us a real good picture. That plant, grow, harvest strategy gives us a real good picture of what to do. Now, let's talk about maybe when you're not talking about retirement. I think that in an accumulation mode, if you have already hit your goal, let's say that you're saving for a second home or something of that nature, and you've already attained the goal, even though you're not ready to buy the home, then go ahead and get it, because that gain might disappear. And I certainly think that there are certainly times to time the market, and that's not really the way that we think about it. It is in correlation to your goal,
right?
But not necessarily thinking about, well, I don't know that it's going to go up anymore, so I'm going to yank it out. That's not, we don't have crystal balls here, and frankly, no one else does either. And so that is really a misnomer that a lot of people have about investing.
So if you think about the number one rule of investing, Angie, it is to buy low and to sell high. And so really, if you were able to script ahead of time what your investments look like throughout the years, you would always sell in a time when that particular investment is up. And so there are definitely times when we want to do that.